Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to build a tiny hoop. A tiny hoop is a 65mm quad. From shaft to shaft is only 65mm. And this whole setup right here is only weighs 25 grams. And this one has the bigger upgraded 205 milliamp battery. It's got an onboard camera attached to a tiny little video transmitter. So the cool thing about the tiny hoops is that they're so tiny and they're so light and everything is protected on here that you can fly this quad pretty much anywhere. I fly this in my house. I've flown it full speed into a wall. I've tumbled downstairs. I've run into my dog. My dog bit this thing and attacked it. But I've still haven't broken anything on this quad. So I think that's one of the fun things about the tiny hoop is that it's so tiny and light that it's actually pretty hard to break something on here. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you all the parts you need and how to build this quad. The good thing about this is that this tiny hoop is super easy to build and it's not that expensive. Let's go through the parts and I'll show you everything you need. So here's what you need to build a tiny hoop. First we'll go over the required parts, the parts you have to make a tiny hoop, and then we'll go over some of the options and upgrades you can do. So first you need a quad. So a tiny hoop is basically just a blade Inductrix modified to carry a camera. So what I have here is the bind and fly version. This one is about 50 bucks on Amazon. So this one is designed for people who already have their own transmitter. If you don't have a transmitter, you can get the ready to fly version, which is I think $70, and that comes with a transmitter already. But I'm using the bind and fly version because I'll be using it with my Taranis, and I'll be using this orange RX to make it bind to my Taranis. So if you're using a Spektrum or you already have a Taranis, you can use this. But if you don't have your transmitter or if this is your first quad, you can go ahead and get the ready to fly version. That one comes with a transmitter, so all you have to do is put on the camera and you're basically ready to go. So you need, well let's go over what's inside this. So the Inductrix comes with different color shell, but you won't be using this because the camera is going to go over it. And it comes with a tiny little USB charger, and it comes with a 150 milliamp 1-cell battery. With this battery, I get about a little under 3 minutes of flight time on my tiny hoop. And then okay, let's go over the required parts first. And then, so you need a tiny hoop or the Inductrix, you need a transmitter, and then you just need a little camera. So this little camera is the Cricket by Ready Made RC. I was trying to get another Cricket or another camera for this video, but these tiny hoops are so hot right now, everyone's buying them up. You can't, it's really hard to find these cameras. So I just took the camera off my tiny hoop, and I'll show you how to build it. So the only part that I'll be leaving out is cutting the wire for this to mount it onto the tiny hoop. So those are the parts you need to build a tiny hoop. And then here's some of the recommended parts that I highly recommend you getting. So this is a 205 milliamp 1-cell battery. With this battery, I get about 6 to 7 minutes flight time with the stock motors on the tiny hoop. These batteries are about 6 or 7 bucks, so I recommend you getting about at least like 4 of them or something, because this thing is so much fun. With 4 batteries and like a 4-port charger, you can basically stay flying all day non-stop until you run out of time. So with this one, I highly recommend getting a whole bunch of these bigger batteries and then a 4-port charger. I have more information on the chargers and batteries on my website, so just look in the link below and you can go find more info on that. And then I made this little 3D mount or 3D holder for the camera, because the normal way to hold the camera on the quad is using rubber bands and stuff like that. But I found with rubber bands, the camera always shifts around, or like if you hit something, the camera will fall off. So I made this little mount, This mount's got a built-in 5-degree tilt, and it keeps the camera in place, so it's always in the perfect spot. Because with the rubber band, sometimes the cameras get pushed back and you see too much of the props, and that blocks a lot of your view. So highly recommend getting a little mount. And then you can get upgraded motors for the tiny hoop also. I haven't changed out my motors because I'm having too much fun with the stock motors right now. So I really like the super long flight times I'm getting. But maybe I'll do a part 2 on the tiny hoop later when my motor gives out and I have to replace them. So those are the required parts you need for the tiny hoop. Now I'll show you how to build it. Okay, so now we're ready to build our tiny hoop. First thing you're gonna do is just get your Inductrix. You're not gonna need any of this stuff. And then just take off the little covering, whatever this is. Just lift off the tabs on the sides. And this thing will come off. And then you need to identify which lead is ground and which is positive for the battery. So the ground is gonna be the lead that's closer to the screw. I don't know if you can see that. It's going to be this one right here. This is a negative. This is positive. And then next, you're just going to get your camera. Mine's already got the wires cut off because this is my old camera. But just cut off enough wire. I say probably like 1.25 inch or something like that. Just cut it and splice the wires. And then now you're just going to solder ground to ground, positive to positive. So that's pretty much all you have to do for the actual building or soldering of the tiny hoop. Next, we're just gonna mount the camera onto the quad. Right here, you see this little arrow. That's gonna show you which way is the front of the quad. Just one thing I recommend you doing when you mount the camera: lift the little antenna off the board. Because if you have it mounted where the antenna is smashing on the board, you're going to see these weird lines going across your monitor. So if you don't have this little 3D mount thingy that I made, just go ahead and get some rubber bands and just rubber band the camera onto the quad, or just use some double-sided tape. So I'm going to use both. I'm going to use some double-sided tape and my little mount. So I'm just going to put some tape on my mount here, and then I'm going to put the camera in the mount. Done. So for this mount, it attaches by using little screws. So I'm just going to remove these 3 screws right here. Alright, so now I'm just going to thread this little antenna through the front, this little front part on my mount. So that way you get the antenna off the board, gives you a cleaner signal. Once you do that, I just kind of move the antenna towards the back over here. And then I'm just going to screw this mount into these little holes. So once you got the mount screwed on and your camera mounted on your tiny hoop, that's pretty much it. You're pretty much done with the build. So I'm just gonna move this antenna over here a little bit. So that's it. That's your tiny hoop. It's done, ready to fly. So if you got the ready to fly version Inductrix, your tiny hoop is ready to fly. All you have to do is bind the controller with your tiny hoop and then you can fly. Same thing if you're running a Spektrum, you can just go ahead and bind it and fly. But since I'm using a Taranis, I'll be using this Orange RX module that'll let me bind a Taranis system to a tiny hoop. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the screens.
Welcome to Free Sky Taranis.
Okay, so go ahead and just go down and find an empty slot, hit enter, create model, and then select it. Whoops. Okay, it's already selected. And then hit page down, and then from here, you can just name it whatever you want. Just for saving time, I'm going to skip that part. I'll just go down and show you what you need to configure on your Taranis for this to work. So just go down here to extend limits. Enable extend limits, because we're going to set up a switch to access the flight modes in your tiny hoop. So extend limits, and then go down to internal RF, hit enter, and then just turn it off, and then go to external RF, hit enter, and then select PPM. Select, and then you can leave all this other stuff the same. So we're basically turning off the internal receiver inside the Taranis, and we'll be using an external receiver. So that's what we just did. And then now scroll down to page 6, I believe. Yeah, page 6. And then what we're gonna do is on the Inductrix, there's 2 flight modes. There's a angle mode where it's self-leveling, and then there's an acro mode. So to access the modes, we're gonna set up this switch right here, this toggle SH up. So when you toggle it up and down, you can select through the flight modes. So you're just gonna go down to channel 6, hit enter, select source. When the source is flashing, just hit this one, and it'll change to SH, hit enter, and then now you're gonna select the position. Hit that, and then make sure it's showing SH up. So you have to hit this twice to show SH up, hit enter, and then now you're gonna exit out of this, go page down, and then in order for your tiny hoop to fly correctly, you have to reverse some of the motors, because right now I think the yaw and pitch or something is like backwards on the Inductrix. So what you're gonna do is just gonna go reverse channel 2, 4, and 6. So channel 2, go down here, hit enter, scroll down to where it shows this little arrow part. It says direction, just hold that, and it'll flip to the other side. Exit, scroll down to 4. Same thing, exit, and then now to 6. On 6, you're gonna reverse the directions, and you're going to extend the limit to 125. So hit this, and then just scroll up to 125, because you have to go up to 125 for it to access the mode switch. Okay, so once you have this set to 125, you're pretty much done with the setup on the Taranis. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off those switch warnings, because that's super annoying. Okay, so once you have your model set up, turn it off, and then go ahead and plug in your orange RX. Go to the back, squeeze this little thing, and then you'll see these pins right here. They'll line up with the pins on the back of this orange RX. Just pop it in, make sure it's seated well. On mine, I have to give it a little push because I'm not sure why mine doesn't fit very well. So on the back, you'll see there's this little bind switch. That's what you hold to make your Taranis bind with the orange or the Inductrix. But first thing you have to do, you have to change the mode to DSM-2, and the way you do that is you turn on the Taranis.
Welcome to Free Sky Taranis.
Okay, once it beeps, you see it's flashing twice. This green button's flashing twice. That means it's on the DSM-2. To change from the different, I guess, bands or something, you just push the bind button. I think you push it 3 times to change through the bands. See, now it's flashing 3 times. I'll change it again. Now it should be not flashing, and then if I do that one more time, it'll flash once. That's not the right one. You want it to flash twice, so do it again. See, now it's flashing twice. Okay, so now our Taranis is all set up for the Inductrix. So now that we finished building our tiny hoop and mounted our camera, all I did was just plug in the battery right here, and then I'll just show you how to bind the Taranis to the tiny hoop. So when you first plug in the battery here, you're gonna see the LEDs flashing on the tiny hoop. So if you see it flashing like that, that means it's ready to be bound. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold the bind button on the back of this orange RX, hold it down, and turn on the Taranis.
Welcome to Free Sky Taranis.
While holding the button down. And then you're gonna hear a long beep. Keep holding the button, and then the LED should stop flashing on the tiny hoop. It's solid, now it's bound. So to change the modes, I don't know if you can see, but there's a little blue LED inside the tiny hoop. If I hit this switch, you'll see it turn red. So blue means the angle mode, and red is the acro. So acro, theoretically you could do flips if you have a big enough area, but the rates on this quad, it's not very powerful, so I wouldn't recommend doing flips. I usually just fly with the angle mode like that. And then to set up the video transmitter for your goggles, there's a little button on the top right here. It's same thing, just like other one button transmitters. Push the button once, a short quick push to change through the channels, and hold the button down for the different bands. So everything is set, we're ready to fly. Kind of hard to fly on the desk because the wind is knocking it around.